teenage boys now, they are so terrified that if you touch in the wrong place at the wrong time, you may find that your whole life is destroyed.
See, I like that
far
terror.
too much. Well,
I like that.
As a mother of a teenage boy, I don't like that terror.
I do.
That's the thing I've ever heard.
That is awful.
I think that men should be frightened. I think it's better to not have a physical relationship than to have one that could ruin a woman's life.
But then how do they ever start?
Well, don't. If you're not 100% sure,
Are we going
don't.
for-
What are you going to have? A bunch of neutered boys who
But
never
it's
had...
so obvious.
We actually do
It's
have that.
like-
Gen Z is having far less sexual relationships
Yes,
than any ever
they
before.
are. It's true.
And
young
hang
people
on.
have stopped having sex.
That's right. The blonde in the video has revealed the real nature of women and the womanist movement's latest agenda, to make boys as feminine as possible. To make them so feminized, they're scared of being with a woman because women have now become masculine. These women want to take revenge on guys by systematically eradicating their desire and need to be masculine and do manly activities such as sports and fighting such as boxing or MMA. However, in all of this rage against men and their history with women in the past, these women are forgetting that having men around who won't approach women or do not even want to be with women for whatever reason is a double-edged sword and is bound to bite them in the back sooner or later. Because you know what's going to happen is that as more and more women become masculine and more men become feminine, the women are going to eventually realize that they don't have any men to be partners with. The men will realize as they are now that they're being misled by society. Because you know what? If you look at history, men live according to what they're naturally supposed to be and supposed to do with life. It's the women who have had the problems. So, men are going to get back to being masculine and women will find they're going against nature, but out of stubbornness, they'll keep living that way until they're alone and miserable at age 50. And as I've said before, we really need to make it clear to society what feminism is doing around the world and call it out for it. It started out as a noble movement for women's rights and inclusion in society. But now that I think about it, it's become more a movement that perpetuates an anti-male narrative, or rather, a narrative that pushes for women to oppress men and take their places in society, just like you saw in the video clip shared at the beginning of this video. It completely ignores the true value of women as feminine beings who have the biological superpowers of being able to give birth to human beings, of being able to care for children and men, and nurture families. These are qualities men don't have. These are qualities that make women stand apart. However, the feminism of today perpetuates a rebellious faction of women who only want to live a life based on how low-quality men used to live their lives sleeping around with women, and not embracing the responsibilities of being men. Modern feminism is teaching women to be second-class males instead of first-class women. The anti-male feminist women of today have incredibly high body counts, and they're proud of it. They're proud of the fact that they don't have any responsibilities towards their own bodies and their own well-being. They constantly try to oppress and subjugate men and feel they've accomplished something when they do. They deliberately reject and ignore men so that they can get an ego massage of how they are superior to men. Today's version of feminism empowers women to not just want equality, but to gain superiority over men. As Jordan Peterson put it in one of his interviews, feminists today think about 1% of men who wronged women in the past and use that to treat every man or the other 99% in the same way, basing their whole lives and the feminist ideology on it, which is a completely illogical thing to do. And this is why modern women today have incredibly high body counts, because they've equated that with being independent and free, and with getting back at that 1% of men who did oppress women. This is why I feel that modern feminism has lied to women in general. Modern feminism has robbed women of their meaning and purpose, and given them a new purpose that is only making women more and more miserable. You only have to go and see the women around your society or online today to know what I mean. Women are miserable because of feminism. They think they're part of some positive movement that liberates them of their worries when in fact, it only steals their value from them. I was recently reading a study that said women who enter the marriage as virgins or with one sex, which is now a rarity, are the least likely to divorce. Women with 10 or more partners are the most likely to divorce, but this only became true in recent years, the study said. This only goes to show that the more women sleep around, the more they're likely to lose any sense of loyalty and future stability when it comes to relationships. On top of that, no man truly wants to be with a woman who has a high body count. It's basic psychology. The more you have of something, the less you eventually want it. The less desire you will have for it, and it will only decrease the more value or charm it has for you. Relationships are like that. I've seen countless videos online where women are crying because they've slept with so many men. They just don't know what to do with their lives. I've said this many times before, and I'll say this again and again. Men were created to procreate, protect, and disperse their seed. Women were created to be givers of love and warmth, and to raise children alongside their partners. Each has unique features and motives. Women have only come to believe that they are inferior beings as a result of the awakened female narrative. If they are not performing all that a man is capable of. Men don't typically cry about their inability to become parents. Men rarely express a desire to raise children while women provide the resources, income, and security. Men and women have their roles, and that has not changed. The more aligned a man is with his masculinity, the more successful he will be. He's not going to be able to attain that if suddenly decides because of popular culture that he'd rather be a woman. Similarly, the more aligned a woman is with her feminine side, the more successful she is. For her, success isn't wealth creation. It's the happiness of her children. It's in the moments that she shares with her family. However, modern feminism has completely twisted this to make it sound like being traditionally feminine is a weakness. That masculinity is a weakness, and that women need to be more masculine and men need to be more feminine. They've completely twisted it around, and women are miserable as a result. Look, I'm all for the right of women to vote, work, earn, and pursue their careers. I'm all for women being able to live independent lives. But I'm not for a society where women are taught to hate men, or that their life's purpose is to ignore their own responsibility to society being feminine and being happily invested in raising their families. I'm not at all for women who feel as though they need to sleep around with 30+ men in their 20s just so they can get back at men, or the 1% of men who they heard did that to women in the past. There are men who still act irresponsibly or do not do justice to their gender. But that doesn't mean women have to do that too. What began as a search for equality has evolved into a search for superiority. Even while contemporary feminist women claim to want equality, they only want it according to their rules, which involve dominating men. Women desire partial equality. True equality isn't what they seek. They desire to receive the same pay as a man does for a particular position without putting in the same amount of effort. Women want a seat in the boardroom, but they can't stay past 6 o'clock because they have a spa appointment. Women just display their anti-male awakened nature when they act in this way, since it demonstrates their want to simply ride the success wave without having to fight for it. They compare themselves with high-quality men who literally sacrifice their entire lives and live in incredibly competitive environments just so they can get to those positions and make a good living for their families. The idea that modern feminine women can survive in society without any men in those countries is a dangerous story that they are actively spreading. This story presents a false picture of how young women can achieve that without ever having to work for it, which makes it hazardous. Are these women going to be sewage workers? Will they be employed in the mining sector? Will they genuinely put themselves in the same appalling situations that men do to provide for their wives and kids? Or do modern women merely want to look up to and copy CEOs? Why the contradiction? Why only some equality? I tell the truth. Not here is equality. Generations of helpless women are being used as puppets in gender politics for dominance. And so, the biggest wave of MGTOW is here. Be warned. What do you guys think? Let's discuss this in the comments. Thanks for watching Man Reacts. Show us your love and support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel.